Hello and welcome to Fierce. This program celebrates the diversity of LGBTIQ identities and perspectives. Fierce is produced in Bundjalung Country at 2NCR Lismore and can also be heard on podcast at fiercefm.podbean.com and in New Zealand on Fresh FM, as well as all over Australia through the Community Radio Network. Fierce FM. I want to honour the traditional owners of the lands where you are living. They took care of these lands for thousands and thousands of years and then shared this land with us at great cost to their own lives. I want to thank them for the care they have given and continue to give, to sit on the earth, listen and care for country. I also want to thank the fairies and crones who came before us in history to fight for our human right to love fiercely.
Hi, I'm Emily Finch.
And I'm Janet Marshall.
And we love Fierce FM.
Woo!
Hello and welcome everybody. We are here in the garden with the godfather of house music in Australia, Mr. Stephen Hawkins, or I like to call him Pa, which makes me Baba. Hello.
Hello, boys.
The legend Stephen. Here you go.
Oh.
Hey!
Cheers.
You've had such a long life. For listeners who aren't sure who we're talking to, Stephen Hawkins really did bring house music to Australia with his record collection, just for his own love of music, playing records and then being asked by friends to play in the clubs and then developing a following and a career that no one could match.
Well, I'm pretty up there because it's 42 years now. Still love doing it on my terms. Whatever my style is, Talking Heads meets Marilyn Manson meets Donna Summer, that's what you get.
So Boof is a big black dog.
He's big enough. He just turned 1 last month and he's just been a godsend. I love him. He's my first official puppy.
Your first baby experience.
Life is full of experiences.
Another new experience is Spotify for you.
I'm doing one of my first USB sets tonight.
Really?
Because vinyl was my format. Because it's all about hands-on. It's the way, it's like an artist. Some people sculpt, some people paint, and I was just brilliant with vinyl. As everybody went to USB, I went to CD. I'm a classic. But on Spotify, I just felt it was important to put that set up there. It is about Black lives, but it also has songs like Glad to Be Gay, which was a gay anthem in the 70s, which hit the top 40. Strange Fruit, which is, nearly 100 years old. None of the things that people are going through are new. It's just that it's a real downturn for human rights at the moment on all levels. I'm glad it's being highlighted again because Black Lives Matter started, let's say, 10 years ago, but it's been going for 400 years. We have our own major issues in Australia, but if you look around the world in the way all human rights are just going backward, it's very scary. So the playlist felt the thing to do because the music also tells you about a better day and love and staying together and being strong. What's Going On by Marvin Gaye and I Am Woman and Power to the People by John Lennon, and a plethora of songs that you could sing along to and feel happy about, feel strong. I mean, that's why music is my passion because it just constantly inspires me. I was born into an era where that music was very important. When it's your life, it's so great to be able to go out with a room full of people and dance to that sort of music that actually inspires you. Because you're using your body and dancing to things that are almost subliminally telling you there's a better way.
Have you ever experienced war in your lifetime?
Interesting question. Have I seen war? No. I haven't seen war. I haven't seen real poverty. We have certain things here, but then we don't help it anyway. We don't help the homeless. I mean, that's something that's really close to my heart. We're just overwhelmed by their sad state, but we move on. It's just an interesting societal thing. It was funny, I was just thinking this morning, when was the last time we spoke about Syria? I'd hate to say it, we're very trendy with our causes. It's like Black Lives Matter. That hasn't just come up, particularly in Australia as well. We hear about pedophilia in the church. War happens all the time. And it's funny that we look away a lot more. But in the 60s, you used to see the civil rights riots on the news. Or you would see the Vietnam War on the news all the time, and you never really agreed with it. Like, people were horrified. All those things are still happening, but we either treat them as new or can't look. And I just think, particularly when we're in somewhere like Australia, we're so safe. I mean, you're in your beautiful garden and I'm in my beautiful apartment. And so when people go, oh, it's just so, I don't understand what they're on about, because you're safe. How can it be hard for you? You don't have to experience anything. I can't look. So in a lot of ways, society has let this happen. You know, black people in America are still 400 years later being killed. Or the gay rights around the world have gone backwards in leaps and bounds. And caring is doing something. When I talked about the 60s and you talk about Vietnam or civil rights, people were out doing things, and constantly. They didn't do it once or twice. But see, with the internet age in particular, it seems like after 2 weeks we're bored. Black rights may not be as important to you as environmental rights or as women's rights or gay rights, but whatever rights are important to you, you should be fighting for if you believe in them. And people like to get on Facebook too much or the internet and think it's activism. There's definitely a part, but if you look at all the great revolutions of history, it's people out there with pitchforks. You know, maybe the corporations need a pitchfork up their arse.
I'm visualising that.
Well, you'd mentioned Glad to be Gay. Now, that was the song that played during the 78 first Mardi Gras.
That was one of the few songs because it was out that year. A lot of straight people didn't know what gay was in 1978. We'd appropriated it. And we knew exactly what it was, but I've seen a documentary on Tom Robinson who sings it, and he said, I wrote it as a gay rights anthem. I didn't think it was going to go to number one in England. The band got booked to do all these festivals, and he said it was really weird. You get up there and start singing, you know, sing if you're glad to be gay, and all these straight people were singing along, which wasn't a bad thing, but they just didn't understand. They're all thinking, be happy, which is still fine.
The British police are the best in the world. I don't believe one of these stories I've heard about them raiding our pubs for no reason at all, lining the customers up by the wall, picking out people, knocking them down, resisting arrest as they're kicked on the ground, searching their houses, calling them queer. I don't believe that sort of thing happens here. Not likely. Sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Hey, sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Pictures of naked young women are fun in tidbits and Playboy, page 3 of the Sun. There's no nudes in Gay News or One magazine, but they still find excuses to call us obscene. Read how disgusting we are in the press, the Telegraph, People and Sunday Express, molesters of children, corrupters of youth. Is there in the paper? It must be the truth. So try and sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Hey, sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Don't try to kid us that if you're discreet, you're perfectly safe as you walk down the street. You don't have to mince or make picture remarks to get beaten unconscious, left in the dark. sure your boyfriend's at least 21, so only your friends and your brothers get done. Lie to your workmates, lie to your folks, put down the Queen's tell anti-queer jokes. They lived ridiculous, joined their laughter. The buggers are legal now. What more are they after? Sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Hey, sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Hey, sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy this way.
So back in the 70s and 80s, you developed beautiful friendships and community through protesting.
Also through just being human and like-minded. We came together because we believed the same things. We had the gay rights, the women's rights and the black rights all going on at once. I didn't have to go to a women's right rally, but gays had a strong affinity with women and black people because we were all oppressed. Their struggle becomes yours, but you are able to say, this is what I focus on. If women or black people needed us, we'd be there. Where a gay march would say, stop police attacks on gays, women and blacks. We were fighting to be made legal.
Yes.
We were fighting
The patriarchy.
Yeah. They're always there. It's a different world now. You know, Labor used to be a great party. I don't have a much better view of the Greens because they're a great idea, but can you please do something? If you look at the Mardi Gras march, which you can see on YouTube, that's people doing something. And there was a march in the morning and then there was a march at night. We didn't do one march and then say, oh, we don't have rights, let's give up. We were constantly marching. Through us marching in the 70s and early 80s, we're now legal.
Yeah.
Once you get rights, you just want to be a human being. I don't need to be a gay human being. I want to be able to kiss my partner in public or do whatever straight people do without you even noticing. That's rights. We ourselves, we've divided our own community because we have gay and queer. Straight people, let's say, they don't have 5 terms for straight people. They're just straight. So I don't understand why we can't just be gay, only because that came along first.
What are your views on supporting minorities within minorities?
It never stops. See, people, say gay marriage didn't stop the fight, or women getting a something didn't stop their fight. Black people are still, everybody's still fighting. But I think we did have a certain 20 or 30 year period from the 70s to the 90s. We did have Mabo. Gay people did become legal. It seems like generations after that became complacent because, well, we've got it now. I've never seen it this bad in the world, and I've seen it pretty bad. I've seen it coming for a long while because you can see the progress of negativity. Because you nip it in the bud. You don't let it get so big that it's overwhelming and I can't look at it. And, well, we allowed that because as a society, we saw the signs and that we did nothing for 20 years. I don't just blame Murdoch.
We had all these wins back in the 60s and 70s, and we were fighting the patriarchy then, and we're fighting the patriarchy now. So we've got a situation where they're always there. I'd love to hear any ideas you've got to nip it in the bud finally, to move on so that we're not fighting the patriarchy anymore in this country.
It's interesting because we're so busy fighting each other. That's what I mean, even the left against left. That's my point. In the 70s and 80s in particular, if you look back at all the rights that different groups got, it was amazing. Even South Africa or whatever. But what that did was it wrote a new rule book for the patriarchy. So they went, okay, they got rights by doing this and this and this. So what we do is we dumb them down. And it doesn't matter what country, but we'll use the Liberals as an example. They've had so many scandals just in the last 3 years, forget the last 20. Nobody's been held accountable. We can't say that's got nothing to do with me.
For me, it feels like it's more blatant now. They're making the humanities and the arts expensive in university. They don't want anyone to be critically thinking. They don't want anyone thinking. They want people following and being told what to do.
Perfect example. That's been there for at least 20 years and we've done nothing.
Really?
And so university was free. And see, no middle-class yuppie blonde thing went to university to do a course. A lot of those kids that go, they just go because mummy and daddy are paying. But in the 70s, people that wanted change, people that wanted to learn, they went to university to do that. So they had purpose for doing it. And then at least 20 years ago, they charged for uni. What they're doing today and yesterday, it's more of the same. But as soon as they started charging 20 years ago, I went, that's where it started. Don't say it's today.
I didn't know that history. And so who was in power then?
I think it was traditionally free because education and healthcare was free because they're basic human rights.
It's all about the dollar now, Stephen.
It's now, and yeah, well, we've made people think that education equals money.
Yeah.
Life became expensive when the banks started charging fees. We never used to have bank fees until the early 90s. And the knock-on effect with electricity, with phone. And see, we're so used to it. I'm old. I know it's not right. I know it's a rip-off. I know it's to keep you. But when I try to talk to people and they say, I've never known that. And if you don't know your history, you're going to be bound to repeat the bad parts. And
Well, I don't think you're that old, Stephen, so you look all right.
Thank you, darling. Keep
Stay
that filter
young,
on.
leave.
How old are you, Pa?
Don't tell.
I turned 60 in September.
Oh.
And
You're
see,
a
that's a good point with the education. See, that's why I get angry when on Facebook on the last couple of days, they're trying to say that they're blocking the arts. They've been blocking the arts for 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
By charging, because the people that really want to do it, that are fiercely dedicated to human rights or to the arts, can't afford it, or it puts you off. I go back 10 or 12 years, they doubled the electricity and gas bills in one bill. And nobody said anything.
No.
Like, these may not be major, but as soon as I saw that happen, you're controlling us because we're scrambling to pay the electricity bill, whether you're on a property or whether you've got 3 kids. Old people use electricity. Young people who have a first home use electricity. Everybody uses it. So you're fucking over old people, and not one person went, but what about old people? Or people on the dole. Because people are so, I don't know, self-absorbed. Whereas that was the first thing I thought. I thought, what about those poor old people? Because you hear about them not having the lights on, not having the heat on. That's 10, 15 years later. Well, that's going to happen the day they announce it. So where's the pushback? See, we don't push back anymore until it's 10 or 15 years later and then go, oh, that's what it did. I'd hate to be a pessimist, but it's too late. You let the electricity bills go up as a society. You let the real estate become unaffordable. You let. Now you complain?
But when we hear it first, we just stomp it on the ground straight away.
What do you do to stop it?
You have to do it legally. And we did it with rights. We had people that knew how Parliament worked. And they knew how to fight the power in that way. And then you had people on the streets, and then you had people create art, and then you had the music that I've put on my playlist. For me, even during the time of AIDS, where I lost my entire community, all I feel is joy, and I'm overwhelmed with the compassion and togetherness we had. We'd hit our stride, and then all of a sudden this mystery virus hits, and it literally killed 80 to 90% of the people I know. But we didn't crawl under a rock. We didn't say, oh, what'll we do? We formed ACON. We formed BGF because through our own network of talking as a community, you know that so-and-so is sick and can't pay his electricity bill. So-and-so is sick and can't pay the rent, because they would just get sick like that. So as a community, we thought, okay, what can we do? So we organised. See, that's the difference now. You think too much and don't get it done. As a society, I mean. It's not personal. But on a positive note, I look at the coronavirus. We've whined about the environment and I'm only one person and we can't do anything. In 3 months, the earth is cleaning itself up from not as much plane travel, from not as much everything. Simple things like your gas and electricity bills, your real estate. 90% of people, they can't afford the rent. How are they going to care about the person next door?
That's right.
So do you
See,
think
life-
politics is worse now than what it was
Oh,
in
absolutely. Absolutely. No doubt.
more narcissists than empaths in there?
Yeah, there was the term, let's keep the bastards honest. Again, like with everything else, we just go, oh, well, I can't explain why we keep voting the Liberals back in. That's a mystery.
And even government-run scientists, like we got to be very careful. They're portraying all this information out, but they're paid by that side.
And that's the thing. If that's happening on the right, well, of course it can happen on the left. Scientist black is saying that it's perfectly right. Scientist white is saying it's not. But it's just talking. I love it. Oh, but this scientist says this because you want to believe it. I just want to hear the truth again. And that is an old thing. Human rights for all. Simple statement. It's my truth. The coronavirus, in a funny way, cheered me up because you look at how clean the planet is. When we say, oh, my God, it's devastated, all we got to do is leave it the fuck alone.
That's right.
You know, and it's the same with human rights. We are very bombarded with a lot of stuff, and also the whole financial sector, and that's changed us. When I moved out of home in 1978, I moved into a terrace house in Darlinghurst, a 3-bedroom terrace house. We paid $20 each for rent.
Wow.
You forget because the real estate has been so expensive for so long, but that knock-on effect of how you don't have time to think about your fellow man. So I don't blame society, but society let the prices go up because initially it was good for me, and we have really shitty parliamentarians, but we're not saying, why isn't this person being sacked? We're sort of just being Grandpa Simpson.
Yeah, like when Rabbit, what's his name? Tony Abbott got given an award for Aboriginal.
No, Robin Bishop. I just have to go because...
Forget the Queen, piss her off.
But even when politicians are in financial scandals, Labor might be much weaker than it used to be, but this week they've had that big thing in Victoria. They're actually sacking members. They're actually sacking senators. They're doing the right thing. Whereas the Liberal Party have gotten away with so many things, and I think that's partially our fault. Maybe that should be what we're fighting for, you know, keep the bastards honest.
Go back to what you're doing right now on Spotify. You're creating a mix of amazing music to help people in some way.
It's also beautiful music. There's some beautiful deep house tracks. They're about Someday We'll All Be Free, because this is from 1988, how people in South Africa were being oppressed. Or I'm Going to Sweat Till I'm Soaking Wet, which is about dancing for rights. You feel warm. You feel wrapped up in a cotton ball of love. I go back to Marvin Gaye's What's Going On album, one of the great albums of all time. Now, he wrote and put that out 50 years ago. So all of that music that we danced to kept us inspired, kept us aware, but also kept us feeling warm. So you can do it all. You don't have to be angry. You feel so uplifted when you dance to stuff like that, or when you hear Marvin Gaye. But it's interesting, 50 years ago and Black Lives Matter today, you think, fuck. And what we've done more than anything is go backwards. It's not that nothing has changed. It did move forward and then it went back. It's not 3 people that believes that Murdoch is the enemy. And we've known that for 30 years. Do you think we didn't hate Murdoch in the 90s and 2000s? It's not new for old fellas like me. When I keep hearing it from young fellas like you, okay, you're right, big deal, great, fabulous.
Just send him the love.
Yeah, just ignore Murdoch because he's such an old hack. He's such an old enemy. Yes, he's there. I don't begrudge that, but we can't use that as our excuse because we're also saying, I know better. We love to go McDonald's or we love to go Murdoch. They're symbols. They're not everything. Because with a lot of bad journalism, there's a lot of good journalism. With a lot of fast food, there is a lot of good food. So we pick. And it's time to stop picking and just doing.
Action speaks louder than words.
Love it. Thank you so much. Should we play What's Going On, or is there another song you'd love to finish the show with today?
I love What's Going On.
All right. Well, What's Going On's good, but I think Someday by C.C. Rogers is a lovely one. It's not a gay anthem. It's not a black anthem. It's a human anthem. Anybody that's downtrodden believes in that song. And that's what I love.
We are all one.
We are one. Thank you, darling. Now you're getting it.
Yes. Let's send the love.
Oh,
You're
love
welcome,
it.
Steve.
Learn a lot. Thank you. You're super fierce and we adore you. People want to find your podcast. Where can they go?
I'm under the name Onlineaholic, but I don't know if you can type in my real name because I don't know Spotify that well.
So if you type in Stephen Hawkins on Spotify, you get some Stephen Hawkins produced tracks that he created himself back in the day. But if you
Okay.
type in Onlineaholic, you get the mix.
Playlist.
The playlist.
That's my persona on Spotify because I was just sort of toying around.
You can also find Stephen on YouTube where he hosted Rage.
Oh,
So,
yes.
Rage. Back in the day.
We'll keep creating the magic, Stephen, and sending that love to all that Murdoch group. Or
And to
government.
our listeners, Jason.
And to the
You
listeners.
know the group and I'll send it to it.
And
Goodbye,
listeners-
boys.
Bye.
Yes!
The world is cold and times are bad. Every time I think about it, it makes me sad. War and drugs are everywhere, and it's getting so hard to breathe the air. But it doesn't have to be like this. Our love can cure the bitterness. If we can just open our eyes, we can make the world a paradise. Someday we'll live as one family in perfect harmony. Someday, when we all pull together, we will all be free. Free from oppression and prejudice, we can change it all with tenderness. There'll be no void between black and white. You'll be able to walk the streets at night. I won't be fooled by someone dazzling starvation. The whole world will be my nation. We will walk hand in hand. I'll go to South Africa and be called the man. Someday we'll live as one family in the sweet harmony. Someday.
Thank you for listening to Fierce. This program celebrates the diversity of LGBTIQ identities and perspectives. Fierce is produced in Bundjalung Country at 2NCR Lismore and can also be heard on podcast at fiercefm.podbean.com and in New Zealand on Fresh FM, as well as all over Australia through the Community Radio Network. Fierce FM on Spotify.